Welcome to another Onshape tutorial where we're going to look at creating a case for a Bluetooth speaker. This tutorial is quite a hard one. We're going to do the figure of 8 speaker case. So if you haven't already used Onshape, I suggest you have a go at one of the easy ones, maybe the cylinder or the cube, and then perhaps have a go at one of the medium difficulty cases, such as the oval or the small oval speaker cases. This tutorial assumes you've already set up your Onshape account and that you're in your Bluetooth speaker folder ready to create a new document. So let's do that. Left click on create, left click on document, and we'll give it a name. So we'll call it figure 8 speaker. Press enter, and that'll take us into the drawing modeling area of the software. So we've got our 3 work planes as usual and our origin in the middle where the 3 work planes overlap. So let's create the first part of our model. I'm going to move the mouse cursor over so that the front work plane is highlighted in orange. Right click, left click on new sketch, and then either right click and select new normal to sketch view normal to sketch plane, or press the N key to go normal to the sketch plane. Okay, we're going to start off with a couple of circles. The first one we're going to draw to the left of the origin, so move the cursor so that it's in the center of the screen over the origin, and then just come left, making sure that it stays lined up with the edge of the top work plane. And you'll see that just below the right hand side of the cursor there's a horizontal line that tells us we've come out horizontal from that reference point, the origin. Left click to place the center of the circle, and then just move the cursor down or around, and left click again to place the outside edge. Left click on the dimension tool, left click on the circumference of the circle, left click to place the dimension, and type in 100, 100, and press enter to dimension it. We're also going to place the center of the circle from the origin, and that's going to be a distance of 50 millimeters. So click on the dimension tool. If you click on the origin, click on the center, click to place the dimension, and then type in 50 and return or enter to do that. Now we've drawn one circle. We could do exactly the same to draw the circle on the other side, but actually let's cheat and use the mirror tool. So use the mirror tool, left click on it, select the edge of the right work plane as the mirror line, and then select the circle as the entity to be mirrored, and there we have our 2 circles. We're now going to draw a bigger circle that is going to merge into these 2 circles. So I'm just going to use the scroll wheel to zoom out. Now you can do this above or below depending on how you've scrolled out. So if you scroll out one way or scroll out another, it doesn't really matter. Just scroll out to give yourself a bit more space. I'm now going to use the center point circle again. I'm going to line up with the origin, and I'm going to come down. And this time you can see that just to the right and below the cursor there's a vertical line showing me that I'm lined up vertically with the origin. And I'm just going to left click down here, and I'm just going to drag the circle out until it just touches that first circle. Now you might have seen that when I did that there was a little icon appeared that looked like a circle with a line on it. That means that the circle edge is tangential to the other circle. So it doesn't matter how big or how small this circle is, there will be a tangential relationship between the 2. So we'll get a nice smooth blend of the curve. I'm going to use the dimension tool. I'm going to left click on the outside of the big circle, and I'm going to change that to 150. So you'll see the circle gets a little bit smaller, and it seems to kind of move in and around a little bit. Now we can look at that and we can make a judgment as to whether we think that's about right. And for our purposes, 150 millimeters is perfect. Now, likewise, I could draw another one above, but let's just mirror it. So let's use the mirror tool again. This time the mirror line is going to be the top work plane edge, and we're going to mirror this big circle. And once we've got that done, there's basically a rule for sketches that means that there should only ever be 2 lines coming away from any point. If we take the origin as an example, we've got the circle going up to the right, we've got the circle or curve going up to the left and down to the left and also down to the right. So technically we've got 4 lines coming away from the origin. So we're going to use the trim tool to trim away some of these lines. So the pair of scissors is the trim tool. The first line I'm going to trim is the big outer part of the bottom circle and the big outer part of the top circle. That gives us our shape. And then I'm going to trim off the inner parts of the circle to give us our sort of number 8, figure of 8, kidney bean sort of style of shape, a bit like a peanut, I suppose, more than a kidney bean. We now need to add a thickness to this because this is going to be the outer shell of our speaker casing. So I'm going to use the offset tool, which is this one here. Looks a bit like Mr. Greedy from the Mr. Men. Select that tool, left click the first profile line, then the second, follow it all the way around, and you'll see that it's gone to the outside. We want this to go to the inside. So over where the big arrow is, I'm going to left click on the arrow and I'm just going to drag it in, and then I'm going to let go of the arrow. And I'm then going to press the enter key or the return key on the keyboard, and I'm going to change that distance to 6 millimeters. So type in 6, hit enter, and that's the profile that we want. Once we've got that shape done, we can now extrude it. So over on the top left, I'm going to left click on the extrude tool. And if I move that around by holding the right mouse button down in space, you can see that it's gone off in one direction from the front work plane, and it's gone a distance of 25 millimeters. I'm going to change that to 33, so click on the number, type in 33 and press enter. You can see it's moved slightly, but I want it to be symmetrical about the front work plane because it means that when I create the front face and the back face of the casing, I can just draw model one of them and mirror it around that front work plane. So I'm going to left click on symmetric, tick that box, and then tick the green tick, click the green tick. And if I spin that around, you can see that it's nice and symmetrical. Okay, so let's draw the front face. I'm going to hover the mouse over. So there it's picking up an edge. There it's picking up the face because inside and outside edges are highlighted, and there it's just picking up the edge. So move it back so it's selecting the face. Inside and outside edges are highlighted in orange. Right click and then left click on new sketch. Press N on the keyboard to view normal to the sketch plane. And we're now just going to pick up the edges of the object that we've drawn, the edges of our model. So we're going to use the convert tool. Left click on that edge. Sometimes it takes 2 selections to pick it up. Pick up the other parts of the edge, and you can see that we've got the shape that we want. Now we're just going to model this as a complete solid to start with. So based upon that shape being selected, I've just held down the right mouse button and spun it around slightly. We're going to now extrude that shape. Again, it defaults to 25 millimeters. Let's change that to 6. It's gone in the right direction. It's coming out of the screen. Hit enter to change it. Left click to confirm it. And if I spin that around, you can see that it's enclosed one edge. We want to do the same on here. Now we could draw that again, but actually because we extruded the first part symmetrically about the front work plane, we can mirror that face like we mirrored some of our sketch entities. So we use the mirror tool, and we're going to change it from part mirror. So left click on part mirror, come down and select with the left mouse button feature mirror. We want to select the extrude to feature from the list on the left hand side, and then left click in the mirror plane box and select the front work plane. So I'm just going to spin that around slightly so I can select the front work plane without clicking on anything else. Left click that, and you can see it's filled that in. We're happy with that, so left click on the tick. And there's our basic shape. We just need some holes now for the speakers. So let's right click on that front work face, left click on new sketch, press N to go normal to that surface, and we'll pick up the center point circle tool. Now if I hover over the edge of the circle and then come in and move along, you can see that it's picked up that circle edge, and we're now concentric to that. There's a little icon down and to the right of the cursor position to tell us that we're going to be concentric to that, which is what we want. It means the centers of those circles are lined up. Left click to place the center, come out, left click again, and we use the dimension tool, left click and left click. Change that to 67, type in 67, press enter, and that circle is in the right position and it's the right size. We want one on the other side. Let's mirror it. So use the mirror tool. We're going to select the edge of the right work plane as the mirror, and we'll select our circle for the speaker hole as the entity. We're happy with that, so we can then select the mirror tool to turn it off. And now all we need to do is extrude through for the speaker holes. So use the extrusion. This time we're going to change that to remove. I'll just hold the right mouse button down and spin it around so you can see. And we want a depth of 6 millimeters. Click on the tick and we've got our case drawn. Right click, left click on isometric. We can see what that looks like in isometric. So let's create a drawing that we could trace over so we can make multiple copies of this, and we can then have a go at rendering it with different textures or different materials. So the bottom left of the screen, left click on the plus sign, left click on create drawing, left click on custom template. We're going to change it from ANSI, American National Standards Institute, to ISO, International Standards Organization. We can leave everything else the same, but we could turn off the border and we can turn off the title block as well. So we've just got a blank piece of paper with our drawing on. Left click on OK, and that will load in a drawing sheet. It'll be a blank drawing sheet because we turned off the title box. So there's no title box in the bottom right hand corner, as you might have seen in previous tutorials. No border around the outside. Left click on the part in the Part Studio. It wants to do an orthographic drawing by default, so let's over by view orientation, left click on front and change that to isometric, and then we'll change the scale from 1 to 3 by left clicking on it, scrolling upwards with the mouse wheel, left clicking on 1 to 1, and that will just about fit in the middle of our page. So left click, and we've now got a drawing that we can print off, and then we could trace it over that, or we could print multiple copies off, I suppose, and then use some pencils or marker pens to render that with different materials or textures.